Hello. Honestly, I feel like it's gonna become a tradition that I start all of my fall videos wearing my bat sunglasses. But fall started a couple days ago, so I feel like they're finally appropriate for the season. So hey. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought it would be really fun to celebrate the first day of fall, which was a couple days ago, by giving you guys a couple of fall recs. So we're just gonna get into it, and I really hope you guys enjoy and get some good recs from this video. So let's go. Okay, so this first book I want to talk about, I just loved this so much. I read it for the first time last September and it was like perfect. Like, I think I read it at the perfect time in the season, and that is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I just thought this book was so fun. It is middle grade that follows our main character, Bod Owens, whose family gets murdered in the first chapter, which was a little aggressive for a middle grade. But he ends up being raised by all of these ghosts in a graveyard, and it follows him throughout his life. You see him grow up and eventually grow out of living with all of these spirits, and it is just so good. I love the atmosphere, I love the vibe. It's just the perfect cozy fall read, and honestly, anything that takes place in a graveyard, I love. Like, I don't even know what it is, but like, just the vibes were theirs. In the vein of graveyards, I have another rec for you guys, which I just finished a couple of days ago and I absolutely loved it, and that is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I thought, this book is so fun. So this book follows our main character, Yadriel, who is trans and he's not really accepted in his community. So in an attempt to prove himself as a real brujo, he wants to like summon a spirit and then help it move on to the afterlife. But he actually ends up summoning the wrong spirit, and he summons the spirit of this bad boy from his high school who just died, I think the night before. The romance is honestly like so pure, and I love their banter back and forth. I just think they're adorable. Overall, I just really loved learning about the Latin tradition surrounding Dia de Muertos. I also loved all of the conversations about Yadriel being trans and why he has to prove himself, and the fact that he doesn't really have to prove himself to anybody because, you know, he is who he is no matter what they say. I love seeing it in YA books like this. Like, starting the conversation young is just so important, and it's like everything about this book is so good. So definitely love this one, definitely recommend this one. You should read it. Those are like my graveyard cemetery recs, shall we call them, because they're very, you know, same vibes. Moving on. Honestly, I'm just like grabbing these really randomly. There is no order, so I hope you don't mind. But the next recs I have are the first two books in a series. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend the second and third ones like for the spooky season, but these first two give me major fall vibes, and those are Stalking Jack the Ripper and Hunting Prince Dracula, both by Carrie Maniscalco. This series is so fun. The first book like is a little bit slow, so fair warning going into it. But this second one, I've talked about this a lot on my channel because I love this book. This book is so good, but let me give you like a little overview of what this series is about. So this is set in the 1870s. It's the 1880s of London. So Victorian London, like hello. Giving me all the Infernal Devices vibes that I needed. I mean, it's nothing like the Infernal Devices, but it takes place in the same time period, so I'm like, yes. I really will find a way to bring that series up in like every video. I'm so sorry, but that's like immediately what I thought of when I first like found out about the series. Anyway, so this first book follows our main character, Audrey Rose, who is an apprentice to her uncle who works in a mortuary. So she's helping him do autopsies, which is definitely not seen as the norm for women in the 1880s, but she's like, I'm gonna do what I want, and I respect her for that. But this is set during the time when the Jack the Ripper case was really big, so that's kind of like the backdrop for the first book in this series, and she ends up meeting this guy whose name is Thomas Cresswell, and they kind of work together to figure out the Jack the Ripper case. So it's kind of like a murder mystery. There's a lot of romance thrown into it. It really gives you that like gritty, dark, gloomy London atmosphere, which I feel like is perfect for the fall time. In my opinion, this book does get a little bit slow towards the middle of the book, but once it hits the end, like, it gets kind of wild. I remember reading like the last 30 pages of this book and I was like, no way. It's kind of gross, honestly, but really like morbidly fascinating. But the second one is honestly like even more perfect for the fall because it follows, again, Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell, who go to this really prestigious forensics academy in Transylvania, where they are staying at Castle, which is like the Dracula Castle. And let me tell you, just the atmosphere and the setting of this book really made it for me. I love the plot of this book too, and I really love the development in the romance, but just the setting of this was so good. I really love, there's like another murder mystery kind of type situation going on in here, and I really love it because it's made to seem like vampires are doing the murders, and they're like, obviously vampires aren't real. But like, are they? It's set during the winter, so it's always really dark. It's got this really gloomy, again, kind of like gritty atmosphere, and they're running around this giant gothic castle, discovering secret passageways and places they should not go, and it is, like, for the setting alone, 5 out of 5 stars. I love this book so much. The series as a whole isn't like one of my favorite series, but the vibes of the first 2 books, so good, and I love the romance. So the next book I have to recommend to you is Bunny by Mona Awad. I'm sure you probably all know what this is, but this is a dark academia type book that follows our main character. I've already forgotten her name. Samantha, yes, there we go. Who goes to college, obviously that's why it's dark academia, but there's this group of girls who are called the Bunnies, and they're all just like really close-knit, really tight, kind of give off weird vibes, but she eventually kind of falls in with the Bunnies, and really, really weird things happen. I feel like that was not a great description of the book, but I don't really know how to describe this book. The first part of this book is like kind of tame. You're just learning about Samantha, kind of getting some background to her life, but then once part 2 hits, it's like a fever dream. I was like, what's going on? I really don't know. This book was just really entertaining. There's a lot of speculation as to what is going on, and you kind of don't get answers. So if you're not into like open-ended books, I can't necessarily say I'd recommend it, but I love a good open-ended book. I love seeing people's theories on what they think happened, and I have spent many hours looking through Reddit threads about this book. I don't know how to explain this book other than like, if you like weird books, you should read it. Next up, I wanted to talk about The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. This is another middle grade book, but I read this book last September, and again, it was like the perfect time to read it. I just feel like mysteries are perfect for September, and this one also gives me like a little dark academia vibe. So this follows our main character, Emmy, who ends up going to this prestigious boarding school in England called Wellsworth. And a few years before this happened though, her father disappeared, and once she gets to the school, she starts to kind of figure things out. She discovers this secret society, and she's starting to think that they might have had a hand in her dad's disappearance. So she makes it like her mission to solve the mystery and see if they do have anything to do with it. And even if they don't, she just wants to know why he disappeared. And it's just a really fun time. She makes a couple of friends, and we're kind of seeing them running around the school, discovering secret passageways, stuff like that I love so much, and I just thought this book was really fun. The mystery is fun. There is a second book in this series as well called The Secret of the Whitestone Gate, which I would like to pick up soon and read as well. So the next book that I have to recommend to you guys, please don't laugh at me, but honestly I'm gonna have to go with Twilight. Like, I feel like you really can't dispute that this is a good book to read in fall. I will not go into a synopsis of it though, because I'm sure you know at this point. So obviously it takes place in like Forks, Washington, so it's always gloomy, rainy, kind of depressing, perfect fall atmosphere. It's got vampires in it, perfect supernatural, you know, kind of romance vibe going on, and I am so excited because I'm gonna reread this book this year. Personally, I'm gonna be reading this book in November just because I feel like November is also kind of gloomy, rainy, depressing, so it'll be the perfect like ambiance for it. But I also think that September is like a good time for supernatural vampire stories, like vampire romances. Like, I also kind of fit the Vampire Diaries in as being a good thing to like watch in September. So, you know, it's not quite spooky enough for October, so I feel like it's perfect for September. I do want to say that I don't think this book is great, but it's definitely like kind of fun, and that's really all I'm here for. So I'm very excited to give this book a reread. Okay, so the last 2 books that I want to recommend, I do not have physical copies for, but I definitely wanted to add them onto this list. So first up, I want to quickly recommend a graphic novel to you guys, and that is Fangs by Sarah Anderson. I'm sure you know about this as well, but in case you don't, I wanted to alert you to it because it is seriously so fun. It doesn't really have like a storyline that it follows. It's kind of just like bits and pieces of this romance between a vampire and a werewolf. If you like supernatural romance, then I feel like this is just a really good pick. And then lastly, I wanted to recommend Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman to you. I listened to this book as an audiobook last September, and let me tell you, the audiobook is definitely the way to go with this one in my opinion. I don't know if I would have been as into it had I read it physically, but having it told to me, it was just like perfect that way, honestly. So this is the first book in the, I think it's called the Practical Magic series by Alice Hoffman. I've also read Practical Magic. I don't think that one particularly gives off fall vibes though, like that book. I feel like the movie does, but the book not so much. But this book, which is the first one, obviously, it absolutely, yes. It follows our main character, Maria, who is a witch in the 1600s. And it's kind of just like following her life. Obviously, eventually you get to the Salem witch trials and you kind of see like what life was like for her at that point in time too. And you're just kind of following her life, seeing her like whip up spells, remedies, potions, all this good stuff. I feel like fall vibes are so strong in this book. I would absolutely recommend. Honestly, I feel like that might be all I have to say about that one because, again, I listened to it on audio, so I don't 100% remember everything that happened, but I do remember, like, every time I was reading it, I was like, feels like fall. So that book is just also a really good time. So those are just a couple of fall recommendations I have for you guys. Like I said, I will also have like a spooky, scary kind of recommendations video coming out sometime in October. It's gonna happen soon, don't worry. So be on the lookout for that because I do have more books that I want to talk about for the season. But these are like the ones that give me not spooky, scary vibes. So, yes, I really hope you guys enjoyed. I really hope you guys maybe saw some books that you want to pick up. Maybe I talked you into reading something that you were already aware of. I don't know. Please let me know down below, however, if that is true. Or if you have read any of these books and you also enjoyed them, I'd love to know. I'd love to talk about it because obviously I love all of these books. That's why I'm recommending them to you. So I guess that is it. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next video.